Hi, Brooke is here. I'm Randy. It's the Randy Karraker Show on Sports Hub STL featuring Brooke Grimsley, Matthew Rocchio. John Denton is going to join us from Florida a little bit later on. Looking forward to that. We're going to talk some Cardinals. We're going to talk some MIZ.
ZOU.
There we go.
Oh my gosh, you forced me to do that.
We did. Because they beat Alabama last night. So that was cool. We got a lot coming your way on this edition of the show. Let's get started, though, with our opening drive.
Oh, we need to get a sounder for that.
We do. It's time for the opening drive.
Yes.
So let's talk about John Mozeliak heading into the final year of his stint as the Cardinals POBO, president of baseball operations. Before that, he was the Cardinal general manager. And
well, he is the general manager.
He is now? Yeah, he's both. He's kind of like Doug Armstrong baseball. He's president of baseball operations and general manager this year.
You actually asked that question at the press conference when they introduced Chaim Bloom, because you have Chaim Bloom. They did that big introduction, but then you still have John Mozeliak as the president of baseball operations. And you asked when we were in that media session, you said, well, then who's the GM? And he's like, it's me. It's me.
That's because during that press conference, I got a text from a friend when Mike Gersh was announced as manager of special projects.
Yeah.
And I got a text from a corporate person who said, that means he's getting his resume ready.
But hey, that's the nicest way to go out, because he not only special projects, which I'm sure is a very, very big deal. Okay. He also was moved to Florida basically with those special projects. That's not a bad gig whatsoever. Well, yeah, that's true.
So Mo is going to depart after this season. How could Mo leave this organization in good shape? There's a lot of you that don't think that Mo is going to be able to leave the Cardinals in good shape because you've got your confirmation bias. It's John Mozeliak. He can't do a good job. Okay, I get those people, but things can change. What if the Cardinals would make the playoffs this year? Would you feel better about Mo's legacy? I would, if he would say, okay, we're going to change gears this year. We aren't going to go with a bunch of new free agents. They did not get a single free agent during the offseason, didn't make a trade. But what if the young players get better?
Well, that's great because you put all this into developing the youth, right? So that's mostly the focus was on minor league system, but youth. And if you focus that also at the major league level, then that's a big win, honestly. But if they make the playoffs, the thing that I feel like a lot of people feel like, at least fans wise, and you guys can weigh in on the chat, but it seems like a lot of people think making the playoffs isn't enough. It's getting past that first round, especially when you think about the playoffs and how the format was expanded in 2022. It is easier to get in the playoffs. So that's not necessarily a huge win. But if they did happen to make the playoffs this season, Fangraphs had them at about a 20% chance of making the playoffs going into this season, which isn't a high probability. We're not math people, but the percentage is not great whatsoever. Wait, somebody, Waterboy said, Gersh is getting his box ready to pack. He listened to the advice from yesterday. That box was ready to go for Gersh when they were able to announce that.
Have that baby under your desk.
Yeah, have that baby ready to go to Florida.
Yeah.
Give Gersh the packing box now from Eli. That's really true. Yeah. But if they were able to make the playoffs, because the probability is so low, the expectations are low, honestly, for the Cardinals going this season, that would be a good way to end it. But at the same time, I don't think that it would necessarily mean much. Does that make sense? I don't know if it necessarily means much.
No, because I think people are looking at a more broad view of the last decade in which the Cardinals have only been to one NLCS. And the expectations are higher. They haven't been to a World Series since 2013. So I think that people will hopefully understand how good things were from the time he took over, basically from 2011 through 2015 when they won 100 games, and things haven't been as good since. But the sport changed. And I think that's been the biggest issue is the Cardinals, not just John Mozeliak, but the Cardinals failed to keep up with what was going on in Major League Baseball. And I've given this statistic before, but if you've never heard it, please indulge me if you have. The Cardinals went from 1996 when they hired Tony La Russa to 2024 when they hired Chaim Bloom without bringing in another person from another major league team that had a voice, a major voice within the organization. Mike Gersh came from the business world. Jeff Luhnow came from the business world. They weren't bringing in, and then there was a lot of promotion from within, and promotion from within is a good thing. But I think part of the reason the Cardinals got passed up is because they weren't bringing in a different set of eyes that understood why other teams were passing the Cardinals up. I think they might have had a little bit of a smartest guy in the room syndrome going.
Innovation.
And it doesn't help.
Yeah, innovation. It's constantly being able to move, pivot into different situations. I think it's weird because I know I just said that if they make the playoffs, it doesn't mean as much. And I'm kind of saying that in the way of, because of what I said of, they expanded the playoff format in 2022. So it's a little bit easier for teams to sneak in, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't make the playoffs this season, then that's a really bad way for Mo to end his legacy. And it's also bad, to your point, of the success that we've seen. It also is a bad end to kind of this DeWitt part too with Mo, because if you think about it, they've had so much success, and that would be 3 seasons in a row that they have been unable to reach the playoffs.
And that is unacceptable for Cardinal fans. And they've given us that expectation this year, at least. Last year, they go sign Gray and Lynn and Gibson. They say, oh, we're going to fix everything. And
got your innings eaters. What else do you want?
Yeah, right. So this year, at least, they're saying, hey, we're in a transition now. It wasn't reset. Now it's a transition. And the expectations are low. I would rather exceed low expectations. What's the old line? Something about promising less or whatever. I don't even remember what it is, but exceeding what the expectations are.
Yeah, exceeding the expectations.
Somebody will text in, well, not text in, but just use
always leave them wanting more?
Chat. Huh?
Always leave them wanting more?
No, it's not that. It's something deliver more.
Somebody will bring it in.
Somebody will. By the way, Eli, thank you. So Eli wants me to bring back the good morning, St. Louis. Should we do good morning, everyone? Or do you want me to do that when we start the show?
Yeah, do it.
Okay, we'll do it.
I liked it.
We'll do it tomorrow when we start the show.
Like the.
Some
people didn't like that.
There's always people who just don't like things that make you happy.
Okay, we've got one poll up. We'll do that
That's
poll
the
tomorrow.
Spirit, Brooke.
Okay, we've got a poll, and let's see. Can Mo still salvage his legacy in St. Louis? Right now, it's exactly 50-50. Vote on the poll at the YouTube because we want to hear from you. And I voted yes. I think that he can salvage his legacy in St. Louis, Brooke. I think Greg Thompson, under promise, over deliver. Thank you, Greg.
That's what it
got
is.
It. Yeah, and that's what the Cardinals are doing now. They're under promising, and hopefully they'll be able to over deliver.
Because there is times that Mozeliak has said things in the past. I mean, you remember that quote about Dylan Carlson? Remember Cold Dead Hands with Dylan Carlson, or even with Jordan Walker, the big comparison that he made there. He tends to say things and then they don't exactly pan out that way.
That has happened. Yeah, so at this point, under promise, over deliver. Thanks to High Refinition joining us on the YouTube chat. Do you see more teams kicking the can down the road like the Doyers to win now? I think the Dodgers are in an interesting and unique situation because players are going there to win. Now, they're getting paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I don't think that players generally are going to find a place where teams are willing to defer, where they're, as players, willing to defer, where they can almost guarantee themselves of having a great chance to win a World Series. Who else exists in that world right now?
Nobody else. I mean, literally nobody else. I still think about their starting rotation. I know that they obviously have kind of padded their starting rotation in case of injuries with Tyler Glass now, who's kind of like the glass man where you expect an injury for him.
Yes,
you have Blake Snell, you have Shohei Ohtani, who knows what he'll look like, obviously seeing him pitch this year. They also have Sasaki. I mean, they are completely stacked. It almost feels like a guaranteed ring if you go play for the Dodgers.
Right. And it's not like they're giving a hometown discount either. I mean, they give Blake Snell the outrageous contract so that he can go somewhere and try to win, Matthew.
I read that High Refinition text differently because he says, do you see more teams kicking the can down the road like the Dodgers? I think I'm seeing more teams kicking the can down the road because the Dodgers. That's kind of the way I look at the MLB is that I feel like there's less teams trying to win this year because the Dodgers, like you guys are saying, it kind of seems like a fait accompli.
But
I was to do with the TV revenue. I feel like I think it's the timing of TV revenue and the Dodgers being able to take advantage of that.
Okay, so High Refinition. Let's be a little bit more clear.
No, I'm saying he might say it one way, but
it was a fun joke. You just.
I got it, Randy.
Okay,
I got it.
But yeah,
not locked into Randy.
I thought he was talking about deferred payments.
Oh, that's okay. I was, and I'm not, again, I'm looking at, I'm not saying he's wrong, or I'm not saying we misinterpreted what he said. I'm just saying I'm looking at Major League Baseball in a completely different way right now, which is I see less teams going for it over the next 3 years.
And wait till the Dodgers fall apart.
Exactly. Wait until something in the game changes, because I feel like there's a lot of people who feel like we're in an untenable position for the next 5-10 years of baseball. And I feel like there's a lot of organizations let's look out to St. Louis, ladies and gentlemen, who might be saying this isn't going to be our decade because we can't go against what these teams are putting up.
I think it's a perfect storm because a lot of this has to do with the Cardinals cutting down on payroll. One, some of the spending that we've seen in the past not exactly work out when we're talking about free agency. Yeah. And also,
you do have an $87.5 million catcher, though, that is performing at a high level.
You do. And then you have no, not so much right now. I mean, he is performing, just not at what you brought him in, not what you brought him in for. But what I was saying is that I think it's a perfect storm of the Dodgers are in just in an area that nobody else is in. They're in the deep water right now. They're the only ones out there. They're the only ones that can swim out there. And it feels like everybody else is in the kiddie pool because they're so worried about TV revenue and where things are going with that. And so the Dodgers are like, well, we're just having fun out here, relaxing. We can swim. You guys do whatever you want to do over there. It's just kind of a perfect storm right now with what's going on with Major League Baseball in general.
When you have the owners of the Mets and the Yankees saying, yeah, the Dodgers can do things that we just can't do right now. That says a lot.
Big deal.
And it is, because here's what happened. And it might have happened for the Yankees had they gotten Ohtani. But the Japanese money that the Dodgers are collecting now is through the roof. And their revenues, I read a piece where last year they paid for Shohei Ohtani $700 million last year alone because of the revenue that they generated from Japan. So back to the Cardinals, though. If Walker becomes and he would have to do it quickly.
Yes.
But if Walker this year becomes what we expect him to be, and Mason Wynn continues to be what he was last year, does Mo walk away in a more positive light? I think he does, because he said Jordan Walker is our best prospect since Albert Pujols. He surpassed Oscar Taveras in that realm, and they loved Mason Wynn as a minor leaguer. They bring him up. If all of a sudden Walker and Wynn are what Mo said they were going to be, does he walk out as a more positive memory for Cardinal fans?
I think it helps a lot, but I'm sorry. I still get taken aback by what you just said there, that he compared Jordan Walker to Albert Pujols. Okay.
Best prospect since.
And then for whatever reason, they still did not stick with Jordan Walker when he was facing adversity last season. That does not make any sense to me whatsoever. You're the ones who went out there and put all this on him. Of course, he's a first-round pick. So there is a lot of pressure for a young player anyways when you're a first-round pick of having to really work out. But the fact that he also said that, and the Cardinals said that they would stick with him through adversity, and then as soon as there was just like a hint of him struggling, they sent him back down. I still can't get over that whatsoever. So to your point, though, I think it's really good, because if they do stick with him this season, I'm fine with Walker struggling. I want to see it at the big league level rather than him get set down again this year. That, to me, would look better on Mo's legacy than anything.
And how many 20-year-old American players wind up being great early on? It's different when you're a Latin player and you're playing every single day. You're playing all the time. But if you're a 20-year-old American player, Mike Trout turned out to be great when he was 20. Albert did. Albert is originally from the Dominican Republic, but basically grew up in the United States. But not many guys have that ability. And the Cardinals became so enamored with rushing players through their system and getting them to the major leagues because it's an analytics thing. And I think it did him a disservice. So hopefully he can come up and be the guy. And I think if he does wind up this year being a good player, that'll help Mo's legacy. One other thing, if you get to the deadline, Brooke, and the Cardinals are out of the hunt. We talked yesterday about the possibility of them being in the hunt. But what if they're out of the hunt? Based on what you saw in 2023 when the Cardinals sold, do you want John Mozeliak being the guy to make trades to sell assets? Ryan Helsley, if Matz is having a good year and you decide to sell him at the deadline, do you want Mo being the guy to make those deals?
No, I don't want the guy who's at the end of his legacy making decisions that affect the guy at the beginning of his legacy with the Cardinals. That really doesn't make much sense to me. With Bloom taking over, as we know, after the season, I think that he should be the one making the trade deadline decisions, because those decisions directly affect him.
Keith Adams checks in and says he can't save his legacy because look at where the Cardinals are at, and that's because of him. Bloom should have full control because it's his team now, and his style is different from Mo's. And I think Brooke and I both agree that that would be a good thing. But I think also, Keith, that you have to look at St. Louis history, okay? Because after 1998, before the 1999 football season, there was no way that Dick Vermeil could have saved his legacy in St. Louis. They had gone 5-11 and 4-12 in his first 2 years. People wanted Vermeil out of here in the worst way. But look at DV's legacy now. Forever, the football coach for St. Louis, forever. That's a legacy, and he turned it around in 1 year. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just saying that what if the Cardinals shock the world and they wind up winning the World Series in his last year?
Well, that's different. Yeah, if they do that, then that's a great way for him to end his legacy. It just seems like the probability is just really, really low. Yeah. And I think that another part of Mo's legacy, of course, what he was able to achieve early on. So we're not taking anything away from that, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's a huge deal to bring in championships. But at the same time, when you look at the more recent years, hiring managers with no managerial experience, I almost said Craig Berube. That was the Blues.
Yeah,
we had so many different firings, but Mike Schilt, that whole situation and how that played out was just a really big part of kind of his later part of this legacy.
Absolutely.
That has really stuck out to people. So you had, managers with no managerial experience being hired, and then you had that whole situation with Mike Schilt. That's something that I think stands out towards the end
and
of
that's
his legacy.
Regardless of whose fault it was. Obviously, Mo had the philosophical difference, and he had the hammer to be able to fire a guy. And there might have been something more sinister, more serious.
I need like a tell. I want to know so bad.
But
so
either
bad
way,
what happened.
It's a bad look for Mo. Mo can't win because Schilt went to the playoffs in his last year. And because of that, he got rid of a guy who just won 17 games in a row and said, it didn't matter if we won the World Series. I was still going to fire him. That, to me, is just a bad look.
It is. It's a really bad look. And it kind of made the Cardinals a national joke. It kind of opened the door. If you notice also, too, in recent years, how many people now are saying such negative things about the Cardinals organization. That's also a part of his legacy currently right now, because it just really opened the door of people talking about that they don't recognize this Cardinal organization anymore.
Blues Fan 94, you see the on the screen, Adapt or Die Cardinals. That's what we're talking about, in getting people from other organizations. And with the Chaim Bloom hiring, they have adapted rather than die. How about the Missouri Tigers last night? A 110-98 victory over Alabama, a 12-0 run to start the game, Brooke, which was amazing in and of itself. The crowd was so into it. And Mizzou wound up with 5 players in double figures, led by Mark Mitchell, who had 35. Caleb Grill had 31. No, I'm sorry. It was 31 and 25. 31 and 25. 60.3% from the field for the Tigers. And they, as far as I was concerned, they were never threatened. Even though it became a 2-score game late, I never thought that they were in trouble.
No, I really didn't either. I think what you just touched on there, they set the tone from the beginning. I mean, Mizzou came out hot from the beginning. You have the home crowd behind you that was absolutely electric. But the fact that they set the tone so early on, I think that was the difference maker, because they went on a 12-0 run. I mean, within those first 3 minutes, that was the big difference right there. And you saw the score at the end of that being kind of the key part. But you also mentioned Mitchell, obviously 31 points, what he was able to do. Grill, another big part of this. But you had several different guys who were able to contribute. You can see the versatility of this team. And I was listening this morning, because I have to be honest, I didn't stay up for the post-game show for our Sports Hub SCL last night. I did watch it this morning with Brendan Schaefer and Kareem Rush. Please go back and watch that, because it was fantastic. But Kareem just really hit the nail on the head with what he said. He said there's no egos with this team. This is just a very versatile group. You can have a superstar, a different one every single night.
And when you look now at the SEC standings, Mizzou is in 5th place. They lost to Texas A&M by 3 on a 3-pointer at the end. Texas A&M is one of the teams ahead of them. Alabama is one of the teams ahead of them. Florida is one of the teams ahead of them. And so they played with A&M. They beat Florida. They beat Alabama. So as far as I'm concerned, and obviously they took it on the chin against Auburn, I really think Mizzou can play with anybody, not only in the SEC. If you can play with anybody in the SEC, you can play with anybody in the country. And I think Mizzou is a team that's ascending right now. I think there's still, and Dennis Gates has referenced this, I think there's still more left. There's more meat on the bone for the Tigers to get even better.
Yeah. I mean, you had that Kansas win for them. And of course, we've seen Kansas struggle. We talked about that yesterday. So it kind of knocked down the value of that a little bit. I think this was the biggest win, obviously, for them for the season thus far. And it was a statement win for Mizzou to be able to take down Alabama, not just like by a little bit, but in this manner. As you mentioned, they were just dominant the entire game. I think that was the big difference too. And this was just such an underrated group going into the season that literally nobody was expecting this whatsoever. And it's exciting. And I asked you guys this before the show, but this feels like probably one of the biggest wins since when for Mizzou. And you can weigh in on the chat too.
Yeah, I think it's the biggest win they've had since they beat Utah State in the NCAA in the first round a couple of years ago. It had been a long time since they'd been in the NCAA tournament. And they get in and they beat Utah State before losing to Princeton. I go back to that one. Matthew, I know you have a fond memory of a Mizzou Tiger victory.
I mean, I go back to that 11-12 season, and I'm not like focusing on one victory, obviously.
Faith and hate.
That season did not end with a signature victory because they lost to Norfolk State. It was horrible.
Norfolk, Norfolk, Norfolk.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Kyle O'Quinn. But watching that team and covering that team when I was in school, 1-win team, again, 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, I don't think I ever saw a night that we saw the Tigers pull off last night. 110 points, playing at the pace with a team that averages 90. That level of explosiveness. They were, they had Denman, they had Dixon, Bowers, English. They had a really good roster, but it didn't have this kind of explosion or overall shooting at all these spots. This for me, and I came to Mizzou right after the Leo Lions, Damari Carroll run where they went to the Elite Eight. It was a great run. But from my time at Mizzou starting in 2009, after that team, this is the greatest Tiger basketball team I've ever seen.
Wow.
Wow.
How about you?
In the last 15 years,
a big
that's
win for you, Brooke. Last time that you...
Well, so obviously I did not grow up a Mizzou fan, so I did have to look this up, but I found this was interesting. In 1994, and maybe you'll remember this, Randy.
Yeah,
so number 12
We
Mizzou
remember.
knocked off number 4 Kansas. It was February 20th, and that also launched the Tigers into the AP top 10. So I think it's kind of interesting, kind of the correlation between the two. And that season obviously would arguably go down as one of the best in Mizzou basketball history.
Yeah, but we didn't like the way that it ended.
Yeah.
Okay, I want you guys to weigh in here. Just win or loss. Here's the rest of the Tigers' schedule. Saturday, they're at Arkansas. Win or lose?
At Arkansas?
Yeah.
Win.
I say win. Yeah.
Then on Tuesday, they're home against South Carolina.
Oh, that's a win.
That's a win.
They're the only
Yeah,
bad
they're
SEC.
terrible.
W.
March 1st, Saturday, March 1st at Vanderbilt.
Well, that could be a good one. I say win. Vandy is a kind of fiery team.
That's
But
one that trips you up. You have a bad shooting day.
Is
and
that
that's
at
when you
Vandy?
lose.
At Vandy.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
you have a bad shooting night.
Okay, so you've got them losing there?
I'm going to make that the one out.
Okay. When March 5th at Oklahoma.
Win.
And then they wrap up the season March 8th at home against 17th ranked Kentucky.
I'm going to give them a W on that one.
yeah, they
Going to the
should.
tournament hot.
Okay, so that's 5 games left, and so 4-1 at worst. I've got them going 5-0, by the way. But 4-1, you get
At worst,
that gets you to
yeah.
24-7, and that gets you to 13-5 in the conference after going 0-18 in the conference last year. Pretty
That's
good.
crazy.
Nominal in the Lou. This is the year karma reverses the Tyus Edney tragedy. Mizzou Final Four. We like that a lot.
Rockio is knocking on wood.
It was a tragedy. And nominal in the Lou. Thank you. Yeah, we need that. So a good win for the Tigers.
It
and,
was.
One other thing about Mizzou. Dennis Gates, National Coach of the Year.
Ooh, yes. If you consider like how underrated this group was.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Is Dennis Gates the best Mizzou basketball coach of all time, or is it too early to say? Norm Stewart won more than 700 games. Yeah. So he was pretty good.
He can get on up there,
Quinn
though.
Snyder.
Could he be top 5?
Right now? Could be. Mike
Depends
Anderson.
on how
yeah.
the season
Yeah,
goes.
Anderson got him to an Elite 8, right?
Yeah. Oh, there's the
I threw up a
shush
very
at the
popular
end.
graphic from last night. And listen, he might not be the winningest coach in Mizzou history, but he sure as hell is my favorite.
He's just
Gates
so
is?
cool.
Yeah, he's my
so
favorite.
Oh, he's cool. Yeah.
I mean,
He's just
I'm
so
comparing
cool.
him to Anderson and Haith.
Yeah. Hey,
It's not really hard.
Kim,
list
not
to
Kim
beat.
Anderson either.
No. I'm
Mike.
talking. Yeah, Mike.
Yeah. Okay.
Look at that. I mean, I love that picture there. I mean, they're literally silencing everybody who's doubted them going into the season.
Isn't that fantastic?
When you were talking about the Cardinals, about the expectations going this year, and
Mm-hmm.
then you just kind of exceed those expectations, they kind of want a Mizzou type run for their season this year.
No doubt.
That's what they want.
We're going to talk to John Denton from Jupiter coming up. And we just want you to know, I've got a little whiteboard here that I can read. And it says, read.
It disappeared. It said, read
Read
to
to
John
to
is
John.
good.
Oh, okay, good. That's what we're going to do. I because I just couldn't read it.
We don't suck. Look,
Hey,
we're broadcasters, so if you just put something up for us to read, we will read it directly. We're like Anchorman.
We are, yeah. It is February 20th, 1 week from tonight. It's the huge Sports Hub STL kickoff party. It is the event of the year. I mean, this is kind of like the Met Gala of St. Louis. It's awesome. And all you need to do is show up Thursday, February 27th for the Sports Hub STL kickoff party. Don't they have wings at the Met Gala usually, Brooke?
I don't think so.
Okay,
It's typically a tad bit fancier, but I'm sure not far off from what they have at Hot Shots.
This is going to take place at Hot Shots on Lindbergh in Lime. You can come out and meet the Sports Hub STL team. You're going to have great food and great drink specials. The party starts at 6. Blues take on Washington. And see, we're in St. Louis. We'll watch the game together and have great prize giveaways. And the Blues Hub post-game show is going to be broadcast live on site immediately following the game. That is 1 week from tonight, Thursday night, February 27th, starting at 6 at the new Hot Shots on Lindbergh in Lime. Hot Shots, St. Louis home for all the games, all the time. Since 1990, find yours at hotshotsnet.com. Can't wait to see you out there. All right.
Yes,
Speaking of seeing people, we're excited to see our buddy John Denton. He is our pickleball playing friend from Cardinals.com, and he's with us now in Jupiter. Hi, John.
Hi, Randy. How are you guys?
Good. Yeah,
Good.
we're experiencing cold weather here, John, and you look like you are absolutely enjoying the warmer weather.
Yeah, Brooke, don't let these palm trees in the background fool you. It's gone from 73 to 69 today, so we're really roughing it down here.
Oh no.
Oh man. Yeah, it's 1 degree here, John. We feel really bad for you.
I feel terrible for you guys. I really do.
All right, John. So obviously a lot of storylines to follow this spring training, but we were talking a little bit earlier about getting the most out of some of the younger players, including Jordan Walker. Is there anything that you've seen different with Jordan Walker so far this spring training?
Well, Brooke, he has a lot of confidence right now. He's having fun. He's spent most of the offseason working with Brant Brown. And what I saw yesterday was he hit an absolute rocket off Sonny Gray that would have been a double to the left center gap. He hit another absolute rocket off of Steven Matz that would have been a single or a double. I talked to him. He feels like the weight of the world is off his shoulders because Brant Brown has given him a lot of stuff to work on, a lot of boxes that he needs to check before he even steps into the box. And, Brant Brown has told him, we want you to have fun and just go hit. Don't stop worrying so much about loft angle and, whether you're hitting the ball on the ground. If you're hitting the ball on the ground, it's 114 miles an hour. They're okay with that now. So they're trying to get him to think less and just be more natural. And, just because he's 6'6", this is my personal opinion, just because he's 6'6" and 270, 260, that doesn't mean he has to hit 30 home runs. I think they would be okay if the guy hit, if he hit 19 home runs, but he hit 285, I think this club would be okay with that now.
Hey, John, if Jordan Walker doesn't become a star, can the Cardinals succeed in the near-term future? At a high level,
Randy, I think so much. Yeah, I mean, so much of what they're wanting to do this season is dependent on Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman. The first time I talked to Brant Brown, I said, man, if you can figure those two kids out, you'll have a lifetime contract in St. Louis. So, their hopes of being a competitive team, maybe pushing for a wild card, staying in the race all season, if those two are right, like we all know, Nolan Gorman has 30, 40 home run potential. Jordan Walker has, 25, 20 home run potential. If they can figure those two out, they can stay in this race and, in this NL Central, they can be competitive, throughout the season. I'm not going to say they're going to make a playoff spot, but hey, they could stay in the wild card hunt all the way up to the end if Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman are, if they're vastly improved over what we saw last season.
That's really interesting. And, we're just talking about Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman, but you mentioned Brant Brown a lot. And I'm curious about what your conversations have been like with him, because honestly, we don't know much about what exactly he's going to be doing with the Cardinals other than being the hitting coach, but kind of his philosophy, I guess, of how he's approaching things with these young hitters.
Nolan Gorman had a great line. He said, Brant Brown is that CrossFit guy who is always on. He's always talking about CrossFit this. He's that guy. And Ali Marmol mentioned yesterday, you don't just kind of stagger into the batting cage and take a few swings and ho-hum. He's like, when you step in that cage, you better be ready because Brant Brown's going to be on you. You know, he's going to challenge guys. You're going to feel like he's in the box with you. He's going to be the guy yelling from the dugout. Like, he is very intense, very focused, very dialed in. He has a plan for these guys. And, you know, right now the Cardinals are 0-0. So everybody loves the hitting coach. Check back when, 30 games in and see if everybody still loves the hitting coach. But I know right now the players love his energy. They love his attention to detail. And, they if this team will hit with runners in scoring position, and that's something that Brown's trying to teach them, different mindsets when you're hitting with nobody on and nobody out, when you as opposed to when you're hitting with second and third and one out. You have to have a different mindset each way. So the players are absolutely raving about him so far.
And John, you mentioned a plan, and you talked about hitting with runners in scoring position. Ollie told me last year, I said, how much of this is just about approach? Because when I talked to Mark McGuire, he's all about approach, right? And he was a great clutch hitter. He had, as a hitter, and still has a great idea about approach. And Ollie said, this is all about approach. So the Cardinals' lack of success last year, Ollie Marmol thought, with runners in scoring position, was all about approach. And it's not like these guys are not talented hitters. Seems like if they do go up with a good approach, to not give away at bats, to not swing for the fences. I know that's something that Gorman has said already this spring. I'm not trying to hit a home run every time up. I think approach can go a long way towards the Cardinals being a more successful offense.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Randy. I mean, think about, you go to the driving range. Do you go out there and just hack balls for an hour, or do you work on the 150-yard shot, the 80-yard shot, the ball that you want to move right to left that invariably moves left to right for me? But like, you got to have a purpose when you get in the batter's box. Like back in the day, like, you've got a runner on second and one out. You got to hit the ball the right side. Like, I started covering baseball years ago with Jim Leland. He was big on that. Guys would be in the box and he's like, all right, Craig Counsell, I got a man on third and one out. What are you going to do? And he would hit a fly ball. That a boy, Counsell, put guys under pressure, and they're trying to do that now. We got a man on third and one out. You got to come through for us. And they're trying to put guys in those spots and think about the game differently when you're in different spots. Maybe you swing away when nobody's on base, but hey, if there's a man on third and one out, you got to get that guy in somehow. So you're right. It's all about approach.
So you mentioned that Jordan Walker might not be, and they're fine with him not being necessarily a 20-homer guy, but Wilson Contreras says he's going to be a 62-homer guy, according to your story. And you also mentioned that he looks quite a bit bigger going into this spring training to prepare for first base.
Yeah, Brooke, his arms are ripped right now. He's a lot bigger through the chest. He said, hey, when I'm catching, I got to be at 230, 235. I got to be able to move back there. And also during the season, you catch in St. Louis in June, July, and August, you're going to lose a lot of weight catching back there. So, he's talked about at first base, he can actually have a conversation with somebody in the dugout now about hitting rather than putting on his shin guards. He can, spend more time in the cage, spend more time in the weight room, as opposed to studying the other hitters and things like that. So he wants to be a guy, he wants to be in the lineup 150 games. And he wants to try to break his, he hit 24 home runs, I believe. That was his career high in 2018. He thinks if he can be in the lineup every day, if he can focus on his hitting, if he can stay strong in the weight room, he could hit more home runs, be that RBI guy that this team so desperately needs.
Hey, John, I want to talk about your piece about Mason Wynn. I want to start with this. The Cardinals in 1986 were terrible, and they got beat out by the Mets. They were done by June.
I remember.
It was bad. And so I was covering the team every day. And every day when the team was bad, we'd talk to Ozzie. And one time Ozzie got really frustrated. He said, why don't you guys talk to somebody else? And he reluctantly did the interview, and it was short. But then afterwards I said, the reason we talked to you is because you're the face of the franchise. You're the guy. You're our touch point as a media and as a fan base because of who you are. And I get the sense that when things are not going well, Mason Wynn has an even keel personality that would be amenable to talking to the fans when things aren't going well. And that's a big part of being a face of the franchise. You did the piece. People can read it at cardinals.com. Do you think he has all of the elements to be that guy?
I actually do, Randy. Like, he's been in the game a long time. Like, he's played travel baseball since he was 8 years old. You talk to his mother. He was uttering the word mama at 5.5 months. He was walking well before his other siblings. Like, he's always done things early. It's always been who he was. When he was 10, his mother made him play on a 12 and under team because his brother was on that team and she only wanted to make one trip to the ball field. So he's always played up and acted older. I mean, he's basically 22 going on 32. He's that kind of poise. And he told me, he said, look, in the ninth inning, if the game's on the line, I want the ball hit to me. If the ninth inning, if we need a run, I want to be the guy at the plate. He's like, I want to win Gold Gloves. I want the pressure that comes with it. I want the scrutiny that comes with being the face of the franchise. He's like, I want to be the St. Louis Cardinals shortstop for the next 15 years. And I give him credit for that. I mean, that's, a lot of people don't know what they're getting into. They want the glory of being the franchise face, but they don't want the pressure. Mason says, bring it on, I'm built for this is basically it. And, I think he's the right guy because his maturity is off the charts. His poise is off the charts. I mean, there was only one hitter in all of baseball last year who had more two-strike hits than Mason Wynn. I mean, that's something that usually doesn't come along until you've been in the league for 7-8 years. Jose Martinez, the third baseman for the Guardians, only guy in the league who had more two-strike hits than Mason. Ramirez, I'm sorry. But that speaks to his poise at the plate. Like, he gets 2 strikes, he's not rattled. He's calm under pressure. So I think he's the right guy for this. I think he's built for it, and I think he can shoulder being that face of the franchise.
And a pretty ringing endorsement in your piece from Ozzie Smith too, in regards to this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ozzie said, look, they've challenged this guy that, if you want to be that level, you got to get better every year. And Ozzie said, I show up at this spring and I see him already better. His first step is better. The way he's, paying attention to detail on the way he handles ground balls. So Ozzie said, you can see him getting a little bit better every year. And Ozzie said, he's not afraid of the big stage. This moment is not too big for him. And usually, it's risky to say that about a 22-year-old kid, but he's calm under pressure, and he has a poise of a 10-year veteran as opposed to a guy who's played in the league for a year and a half.
John, one last question for me, because we were discussing this at the beginning of the show, but obviously this will be the final season for John Mozeliak as the Cardinals president of baseball operations. How can he end his legacy this season on a good note? We discussed many different things of whether it's Mason Wynn and Jordan Walker really turning into being those superstars. You can throw Nolan Gorman in there, making the playoffs. But in your opinion, how can he have a good ending to his legacy as Pobo of the Cardinals?
Yeah, a lot of times when you hear the word reset, rebuild, there's a lot of pain involved. Trust me, I covered the Orlando Magic for a long time. I know a lot about rebuilding. A lot of times it's painful for the fans. It's painful for the teams. Like, it's, everybody right now says, we can compete. And then you get about 50 games in and you're like, oh, wow, we don't have enough to do this. And guys start letting go of the rope. But if you can see the Gormans break through, the Walkers break through, the Winns break through, Quinn Matthews is throwing a live BP right here, right next to me right now. If you see some of those guys, the guys that John Mozeliak was around to draft, and you see a future, John Mozeliak's legacy is going to be what he did early back in the 2010s, and it's also could be what happens in years to come. If Mason Wynn turns into the face of the franchise, John Mozeliak brought him here to St. Louis. If Jordan Walker becomes that superstar that we all think he could be, that's going to be part of John Mozeliak's legacy. So if these young kids come through and keep them in the race this year and then become great players down the line, that's going to be a part of John Mozeliak's legacy. I know a lot of people give him grief for the Arenado thing, and a lot of people point fingers that they're in the position they are now because of Mozeliak. But if these young guys hit, that's a part of his legacy, and you're going to have to give him credit for it.
John, a couple more quick things. Number one, on the YouTube chat, Andy asks if there are any Cardinal prospects standing out to you so far in camp. You mentioned that you're right next to Quinn Matthews throwing a bullpen, but any Cardinal prospects that we aren't thinking are going to make the team that have done anything that has caught your eye?
Well, yeah, like you said, this franchise is very impressed with Quinn Matthews so far. He's asking the right questions. He's doing the right things. He started his live BP today with a strikeout right off the bat. I got to watch JJ Weatherholt yesterday. He wasn't messing around. His live BPs, he was hitting first pitches. He was hitting line drives, that sort of thing. So he's a guy to watch. I'm curious to see Chase Davis, their first-round pick from 2023. He really made big strides last season. Hearing good things about him. that sort of thing. Thomas Ajacey is another guy, Randy. He is cool as a cucumber. And I was asking him about you're taking ground balls behind a 10-time Gold Glover and Nolan Arenado. Ozzie Smith standing right there giving him advice, and he's like, I'm not really a starstruck guy. I don't really get starstruck. So he's just a cool customer. I mean, he hit 391 in fall league. He's hit every level he's ever been. So I really think Sajasi is going to push for one of those roster spots. The fallback is to maybe put a veteran on there, but Sajasi is going to push for one of those spots.
Good. He'll be fun to watch. Finally, John, Brooke told me before we came on the air that, like in every city, you found a place to play pickleball, right?
We have a place to play pickleball. I'm disappointed in myself, Randy. I've only played 3 times in 2 weeks so far, so I've got to fix that going forward. So I'm gonna try to work on that. I know, this work keeps getting in the way of all my fun. I got to get my priorities in order here,
Absolutely. Hey, we appreciate you taking the time, John, and we will see you here for opening day. Probably have you on again before spring training is up, if that's all right with you.
Sounds great. You guys stay warm in St. Louis. Take care.
We'll do our best. Thanks, John. See ya.
Thank you.
That's our good friend John Denton from MLB.com, covers the Cardinals, does a great job of covering the Cardinals. And as we mentioned, a great piece on Jordan Walker. I
don't know what his middle name is, honestly.
I hope it starts with a J. And the Mason Wynn, the face of the franchise piece on Mason Wynn too, who's willing to what do they say? What's the smoke thing? He's willing to
take all the heat, basically, of being the face of the franchise. Because that just shows that he acknowledges that it's not going to be pretty, that there's going to be people who really hate on him. Sometimes when you're out there more, that means that more people are going to hate on you. And it sounds like that he's willing to kind of take on the heat with that. So
he wants all the smoke.
Bad news. Jordan Walker's middle name is Alexander.
So it's
J-A-W. Jaw. Okay.
We can handle that.
Yeah, that works. Yeah, but Jordan Walker, that's exciting to hear. I'm also excited to hear all this about Brant Brown too. I really didn't know much about him going into this. And, John's right. Sometimes the hitting coaches get a little bit too much negative attention. I mean, we've seen in the past where
Jeff Albert.
Yeah, Jeff Albert, where people would show up to his house and tell him that they didn't like what he was doing. But I really like that it sounds like Brant Brown is, paying attention to these younger players, and it's getting through to them that they're actually paying attention to what he's saying.
And Andy joins us on the YouTube chat, says, great to hear that Brant Brown and Walker are working so well together. It is. And heard that Nolan Gorman also just had a great offseason with Brant Brown, and said, unless he's working with somebody secretly, nobody's worked more with him than me.
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
that is really interesting.
It'd be nice if Gorman had cut down on his strikeouts. We'll see.
Maybe he introduced popcorn back into his diet too.
Oh, that might be.
We should have asked John about that.
Buttered popcorn.
If you don't remember from last season, there was a story about Nolan Gorman. He kind of worked on his diet, and he also, I see what you're talking about there, but he also cut out popcorn, and then everybody was kind of making a big to-do about that.
Yeah, it didn't work out. It increased his strikeout rate to 37%. Nominal in the Lou, JJ Dynamite Weatherholt.
Oh.
That's different shows. Oh, okay.
That's a good callback to those shows. But yeah, that was great with John Denton. And coming up, we do have to talk about Educated Spirits before we get to the Grim Report, where we're going to talk about some hockey with Four Nations.
And the Sports Hub STL is sponsored in part by Educated Spirits' new Rivals Bourbon Collection, featuring the Black and Gold for MIZZOU. Taste the tradition in every sip from Educated Spirits, a company created by Kareem Rush, the Mizzou basketball star, who's now a Mizzou basketball analyst here on Sports Hub STL. And Kareem is on the air after each Mizzou game on Sports Hub STL, starting last night and throughout the rest of the season. Kareem and his brother Brandon Rush have set out on a mission to produce a bourbon that is not only approachable, but also delivers that signature Kentucky hug that aficionados love. Educated Spirits is committed to blending time-honored distillation methods with a fresh, modern approach, offering an authentic experience that respects the art of fine spirits. The brand isn't just a product, it's a celebration of legacy, culture, and the connections we share over a great drink. Educated Spirits is here to elevate every sip one story at a time. To pre-order, visit educated-spirits.com. Even if you're not a bourbon drinker, support one of our favorite Tigers and grab a bottle to display at home. That's educated-spirits.com for the new Black and Gold Bourbon. Educated Spirits, taste the tradition in every sip. Cheers.
And it is time for the Grim Report.
The Grim
Report. All right, we have to talk about the Four Nations tonight. Look, the NHL has discovered the perfect recipe, Randy and Rockio, and everybody else who's listening too, for a high-intensity mid-season tournament. Step one, you don't play an international game or international hockey for nearly a decade, was it? Step two, divide players into national teams where they, of course, will have a lot of pride for that. Step three, have a little bit of political tension going on.
That helps. Yep.
And step four, have those two teams make the final. So you have Team USA and Team Canada facing each other tonight in the championship. I am so excited for this game. I don't know how you top it from that last meeting because obviously they started out with the fights at the beginning, but there's still so many interesting storylines to watch for tonight going into it. Charlie McAvoy, one of Team USA's top defensemen, will not be playing, so that's a huge loss for Team USA. Brady Tkachuk, he also missed Wednesday's practice with an illness. Apparently there's an illness that's going around right now. Hopefully he still will be able to play. And then we also saw that Matthew, he skipped Monday's game altogether. He's just making sure that he's ready for this championship. I don't know how you could top that last game, though.
Oh, no. But here's the thing. And this is one of the fortunate things about Matthew and Brady Tkachuk is that they live here in St. Louis and for years have listened to us. And they're well aware of the fact that if they just head out in Boston to Walgreens or CVS or do they have Dwayne Reed in Boston? Wherever they go, they just find a convenience store, go to the back, get some of the high octane Sudafed, and then pick up a bottle of Mountain Dew. And whatever your illness is, Mountain Dew and Sudafed will cure it, and they'll be fine for the game tonight.
You're right. It actually does work for you because I've actually seen you put this into action the past few years of where you do the combination of Mountain Dew and Sudafed. Now, I don't know exactly what's keeping them off the ice illness-wise. I assume it's something really bad because hockey players, as we know, they will just play through anything. So it has to be a pretty bad illness. I might assume maybe some throwing up or something, but in Croatia, when we went to Croatia, there was, internationally, sometimes they have better versions of like stomach virus stuff. And there was something that I took over there that instantly got rid of, like, I was not feeling well and I had thrown up, food poisoning probably one time. That's what they need. Somebody needs to fly in just some of that international medicine.
And the irony is they have high-powered prescriptions, pharmaceuticals in Canada.
They do.
That we don't have here. So maybe some of their secret Canadian friends will bring some stuff over. But here's the cool thing about tonight. Number one, you mentioned everything that goes into tonight. Now we've had trash talk between Brandon Hagel that said, hey, we're just playing for our flag. We don't initiate anything. We don't have any group chats. And then Matthew
that's a
says,
shot at the Chucks. Yeah.
Right. And Matthew says, well, that just tells me they don't like each other if they don't have group chats going on, which is pretty cool. But these two teams are so evenly matched, Brooke. And I think even with a hopefully not overly diminished pair of Tkachuks, but the USA also, because of the injury to McAvoy, they tried to get Quinn Hughes from Vancouver to play. The Canucks said, no, he's too hurt. He can't play. So the lack of depth is going to be palpable on the American side, whereas on the Canadian side, they get Cale Makar back. So they'll be better. It'll be home for the USA. I think that will help the USA team. I just can't find a reason for one team or the other to win this game, except for one thing, and I hate to do this.
What?
I think Connor Hellebuck is the best goalie in the world. I think I think Jordan Binnington is great, and I think Canadians are stupid for writing in The Athletic that he is a weak link. But if I'm going to choose a goalie to win this game tonight, it would be Connor Hellebuck.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, especially with the way that he's been performing, he is a really good goalie. I don't want to see Benner get smoked. I really don't like, to your point, I didn't see the Athletic article about this. So I didn't know that they put that in there, that he's the weak link.
In the USA game where they only scored one goal, they were blaming Binnington for the loss.
They had McKinnon and McDavid. I think that they were only able to muster one goal, that's kind of the bigger issue
26
there.
Shots on goal.
And then we have this comment from Sandwich Man. It says, as a Blues fan, I'd love to see Benner have a great game, but as a Missourian, I want USA to win 1-0.
So that'd be great.
It's beneficial for Team USA and it's beneficial for Benner if you're a Blues fan. I see what he's doing there.
Right. And it's really interesting because either way, you can root for St. Louis. You can root for Binnington and Parayko, or you can root for the Tkachuks. What it comes down to, though, is are you rooting for the USA or are you rooting for St. Louis? That's a really weird dynamic and dilemma to have. I'm rooting for the USA.
Of course, you have to root for Team USA. I like that point, though, of I don't want to see Benner get blasted and him continue to kind of go through this just kind of gauntlet. I mean, even like I just don't get it. Like, even the Canadians are hating on him. As we talked about before, like TSN, the way that they were just talking about, like, oh, that was a weak goal given up by Benner. And it's like, I think there's a lot more going on than just Jordan Binnington in this situation.
Would you be surprised if we had fights tonight? A fight?
There has to be.
I don't think there will.
You don't think there will be any fights tonight?
I don't think so. No, I think
Karraker's not going to drop the gloves again?
I don't think so. Yeah. Dalton Ferris says, yeah, can USA defeat Canada again? Will Canada get booed? Is there under 1.5 fights? I'm going to say under on the 1.5. I hope Canada doesn't get booed.
It probably will.
But why? What's the point?
Because they did it first, so then we have to do it
we have
to
to
them.
Respond in kind.
They probably said that they were doing it in response to what happened in Nashville, as we talked about before, where the Canadian national anthem was booed. So then they boo USA. It's a weird subject. Thomas, hey, Thomas, he chimes in. He said, don't count out Benner and TD Garden in a high pressure scenario. That's true. We've seen it. It has happened. Yeah. That is the thing with Jordan Binnington, though, that makes him just so special, is especially in those pressure situations, he performs so well. So I want him to succeed, right? But just not super succeed, because then we don't want Team USA to lose. By the way, I know that we're going to get into some betting and some prop bets a little bit later on in the show, but this is something to keep in mind if you're kind of on the fence of betting between Team USA or Team Canada. The designated home team is 0-6 in this tournament. Team USA is obviously considered the home team tonight in the championship.
Yeah. I like the defense of the Canadians better. I like the goalie of the Canadians
especially
better.
If you have Cale Makar back. I think that's a big difference. They didn't have him in that last game.
Right. In theory, I also like McDavid and McKinnon, and their forwards better. But the thing is, in a game like this, you want to have grit, right? We've seen a Stanley Cup championship team, and to win big games like this, you have to have a tremendous amount of grit, intestinal fortitude, whatever you want to call it, and the ability and willingness to sacrifice. And I really do think that the USA does that better than the Canadians.
So we have a comment from Brian saying, better yet, USA wins 2-1 in overtime. Karraker gets the only goal for Canada, and both Kachuk score for the U.S.
We're looking for
that has
the
a little
perfect
St. Louis
scenario.
Flavor right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have no problems with that, but I can't wait for this game to start. I wonder what the players are going through today. I think Brandon Hagel made himself a great American villain.
Yes.
Right. And I think Matthew's response was perfect.
Yes. I like that. That is what other leagues kind of need to look at in this situation. When I was talking about earlier about having kind of the perfect formula for just a high intensity midseason tournament. Then again, I don't know if many other leagues can replicate what's going on right now with the NHL with 4 nations, but I like all this chirpiness. You have a lot of people actually paying attention to what's going on in the NHL. And I know that there's obviously a big group of NHL fans, but we always talk about how they're still kind of seen as like the little brother compared to a lot of the other sports leagues here in the US. Big events like this and how much you have the chirpiness, the Kachuk brothers are just perfect for this. Just really helps in putting NHL more in the national spotlight and international.
I would not be surprised, guys, if this winds up being the highest rated non-football game in ESPN history.
You think?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
That'd be interesting. What was the viewership for the game the other night? Saturday night, it was like 5.4 American.
But this game isn't on ABC, though.
Oh, that's
this
true.
This game's on ESPN.
That's good. That's
a
good
that
point.
Changes things.
Yeah.
Ben Russ. Benner still has it. He just needs to have his players play well in front of him. He is not who he used to be, but can still be very good.
Agreed.
I don't agree with that second part at all. In fact, I don't agree with the first part of the second part, which is that I don't think Benner is not who he used to be. Every single number and metric that you kick out this season and look at tells me that he is exactly the goaltender he's been over the last 3 seasons. Yeah, the playoff run, as it happens a lot in hockey, probably is going to be the greatest run he ever plays in his career, but that's not a rare thing, nor does it take away how solid of a player he has been for the majority of the last 3 seasons. And every number says he's essentially the same goaltender he has been for the last couple of years.
I think one of the problems that they have in Canada is they got so spoiled. And there was a great piece in The Athletic a couple of weeks ago about the demise of the Canadian goalie. And it really is a thing. But Jordan Binnington is not Martin Brodeur. He's not Patrick Waugh. He is mortal. and he does make a mistake now and then.
Mhm.
And I think Canadians, for whatever reason, they expect him to be as good as those other guys were, and it's just not going to happen. And they think that Logan Thompson this year should have been on the team, or that Hill should have gotten starts. Well, number one, the roster was set a long time ago. And number two, as we said earlier, when the Canadians have lost, it hasn't been the reason. Binnington hasn't been the reason that they've lost.
Yeah, he's also the Blues all-time franchise wins leader,
Yep.
so he deserves to be there. That's a huge accomplishment, especially when you talk about the history of goalies that they've had throughout their organization. That's a pretty big deal. I think it's just that Jordan Binnington, so early in his career, and he's talked about this in recent interviews that I find really fascinating, is that he was fine with being the villain, and he used that anger to propel him where nobody believed in him. Nobody thought that he could be the goalie that would take them to a Stanley Cup championship and then win the championship for the franchise. And he actually played into the anger. But then he said he kind of reached kind of that peak, that mountain of his career, and he realized that he couldn't use the anger anymore. He had accomplished that.
Yeah.
And so he's not that guy as much. I like the chirpiness from Jordan Binnington. I know at times the organization didn't like when he would kind of do kind of the little witty banter and things like that. I think that the NHL should embrace more of the personality, kind of like how they are with the Tkachuk brothers. Embrace this personality. Let these guys show that. And I think that that's a good thing. And
Let 'em
Binner, I
fight.
think that, let him fight.
Fight.
Everybody wants to see that.
The funniest part of the Jordan Binnington lore will always be that he two-hand hacked a guy in the back of his legs like a week and a half before getting called up for the Blues and then going on the 2019 run. Like that is an
all about.
insane fact that he got kicked out of a game for just guy scores on him and he just two-hand hacks him, and a week and a half later he's up in the NHL and off to the races for the rest of his career.
Andy on the YouTube chat, and we do want you to participate. We want everybody to participate in the YouTube chat. Tell your friends, by the way, about this show. Just hop on YouTube, go to Sports Hub STL, and you can find us and be with us every day at 10 o'clock. But Andy says, this tournament has been such a huge win for the NHL, much, much better than an all-star game. Literally nobody cares about an all-star game. There's no emotional investment in a hockey all-star game. Nobody cares.
No.
Players don't, fans don't. I don't think anybody cares. I'm emotionally invested in this. Even the game that the USA lost when they didn't have their guys the other night, I'm emotionally invested in the last few minutes, hoping they can score a tying goal and send it to OT. There's no way I would ever be invested in a regular all-star game where they're playing 3-on-3. I don't even know how that works, but
It's really boring.
It's bad.
It's really boring.
This is awesome. This is what hockey is supposed to be.
This is what they should do, especially when you're looking at continuing to compete, like as we were talking about, against the other professional sports leagues and gets people's attentions. Because I mean, the way that they just lay it all out there on the ice, and you can tell that it means so much to them. They're going to go back and play the rest of the season. These guys are just getting banged up during the Four Nations tournament, you know?
And the playoffs will start and they'll say, I
had a broken rib that I've played with like since Four Nations.
Right.
Like, it's just no big deal. Yeah.
Pretty amazing. One more from Ryan Mack, STL. Ryan, thanks for checking in on the YouTube chat. It's so great to see all the stars of the NHL play against each other. We don't get this in the Stanley Cup. This is what brings in new fans. Absolutely. The fact that a guy like Tkachuk has to go against Sam Bennett, right? His teammate. But you've also got the built-in rivalry between Hagel, Tampa, and Tkachuk, the Panthers. It's pretty cool.
And you even have Canadians rooting against their own players that are playing in their own country.
It's pretty crazy.
Even if they're Team USA, obviously born in the USA, but they play for the Canadian teams.
And Gene Glass checks in. He says they should have included more countries, especially Russia. Russia, if you wanted to play, all you had to do is not invade Ukraine. Okay, you want to play.
Play fair.
Don't invade other countries. It's that simple.
Play fair, but it would add to more of what I said. That recipe of what's really working for this is underlying political tensions. The timing of this is perfect. That you have the political tensions, honestly. And I know this isn't a political show, but I think we're all fully aware of what's going on with USA and Canada right now.
Right.
Oh, the tariffs and all that different kind of stuff. That
we just want them to be another. We want them to be our teammates. We want them to be a state.
We want Canada.
Randy, the last time we did that, we invaded them.
Well, that's how you'd have to do it, but still.
Here's the thing. You know what? I'm sure that President Trump will say this tonight. If Team USA wins, then we do take Canada.
I like this. Good call. Well done. Yeah.
I mean, you don't think like the last 25 Stanley Cups hasn't been enough for the for us to establish hegemony over them? Just saying.
Yeah. Well, that was the Grimm Report. We ended it on a political note.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, not really.
Team USA versus Canada tonight. Very excited.
7 o'clock ESPN. Hey, kids, did you know that Cards Hub 365 powered by Gray Bar comes up today at 1 o'clock right here on Sports Hub STL's YouTube page? Brendan Schaefer and Mike Claiborne will be live at Cardinals Spring Training in Jupiter. You can also get the show on demand from YouTube or on Apple, Spotify, or any other major podcast outlet. Now, a big part of what we're going to be doing here at Sports Hub STL is being on live when it's time to react, which means a post-game show for every local team, and this is going to be awesome. Last night, Brendan Schaefer and Kareem Rush started us off after the big Mizzou win, which you can now watch or listen to on demand. And coming up Saturday, 5 teams will be in action. And yes, we will have a show for all 5 of them. Oh, the clock has the alarm's going off.
What is this ancient device? I've never.
It's a clock. Did you fix it?
What is this ancient device?
I really wish you would have a camera on so you could have seen Millennial dealing with pre-2000s technology live on camera.
What is?
It's
How did you do
it's
that?
called a clock.
No, it's different. But I was saying, like, how did you turn it off?
The top button there.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So anyway, 5 St. Louis games on Saturday. And that means we're going to have 5 shows for you. The Cardinals' first spring training game should end at about 3. We'll have a post-game show for that. SLU's game against Rhode Island ends at about 3:30. We'll have a post-game show for that. Blues game with the Jets ends around 8:30. We'll have a post-game show for that. Mizzou's game with Arkansas should end at about 9, and we'll have a show for that. And then City has their first match of the season, and that should end around 9:30. So post games for all of the shows right here on Sports Hub STL, live and on demand. Make sure you follow us on social media at Sports Hub STL to find out the latest start times. Post game coverage on Sports Hub STL is brought to you by Hot Shots, St. Louis home for all the games all the time since 1990. Find yours at hotshotsnet.com.
Okay, so real quick, we're gonna get to MEGAMIND minigames, but first we're gonna look at this. So we can't. Obviously, you can't see too closely. I know that it's a clock, but then I was trying to figure out how there's nothing that says on off. I was just looking for a simple on off button.
Oh, it's a clock.
And there's a snooze and there's a light.
Here, camera.
How long have you had this?
Probably about 5-6 years.
Really?
You got it
Oh,
on
that's
Amazon.
not that long. Oh, okay. This
Maybe
is
longer.
nice. Does this also wake you up in the morning?
No, this is just so that I have a clock to
For
carry
timing?
around for to be.
Oh, I didn't know if it was also like you could take it. I mean, it could be your alarm clock and you just take it
Yeah,
everywhere with you.
Could be.
Yeah.
I hate that there was a point where like those videos online where like grandparents would show their kid a rotary phone and ask them to like
Oh yeah.
call your home number,
Mhm.
and the kids just couldn't figure it out. I hate that. I really want to I really want to do this with like basic appliances, just with like me and Brooke, and see if we can figure something out from the 90s that I haven't had to use in 20 years.
Yeah.
I hate that
like
I-
a DVD player or a VHS.
I could figure out a
tape.
VCR. I was a
It
pro
was
at the
easy.
VCR.
Yeah.
Blockbuster never
Blockbuster.
once got me for not rewinding that
Yeah.
video. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
But I've seen that trend where they kind of have two people, Gen Z and millennial,
Yeah.
and there's a door in between, and you ask them,
Mhm.
okay, how do you call somebody? And then
Oh, that makes
millennial, I do this,
It makes
but then
me
they
mad.
do this. Gen
Or
Z,
like the
you know,
flat
like
phone,
an iPhone.
like they do like their palm. That makes me that's the one time where I'm like, I get why people do the whole get off my lawn old
Yeah.
like senile thing. I feel it in my bones when those videos play. I get it.
And then even if you say like, okay, I'm gonna hang up, then you could they do this instead of like
Oh,
this.
that's funny.
You know, and I think that honestly, it was more fun to do this back in the day. If you were mad
You
at
could hang
someone,
up
you
on
say,
somebody, yeah.
you know what?
Loud click. Yep.
Yeah. And now with iPhone, you say, you know what? It's not as satisfying.
No, it's not. You
It's
just go
not.
away.
Yeah.
And then they could just think, oh, they must have got cut off. They had a bad cell area or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's not good.
It,
You
it
want
was like
people
a
to-
hard ending.
Yeah, you want
It is.
somebody to know you're mad.
Exactly.
I got
Yeah.
that.
All right. Now it's time for MEGAMIND mini games. Rockio is the one who came up with this, and I'm very interested to see what we have in store for this.
I'm intrigued.
So Randy, we weren't able to do this yesterday, but you kind of got I showed Randy after the show an example of what we'd be doing. So we can't really do the fight because bringing people on video is tricky and very complicated. So we're not going to be doing the fight on the show. I know a lot of people want us to bring back a lot of our radio oldies. So I thought of a new way to get the trivia minds out there for Randy Karraker. And this one is also playable in the comments. I won't put up comments to help Randy, but if he has trouble, we might help him out throughout the questions. Also, this is going to be this is also going to be part of a larger game, Randy, because here's the thing, Randy. You're gonna get 2 lists, and in these 2 lists, each of the lists has 2 mistakes. So you have
Each one has 2 mistakes.
Yes. So you have 4 points that you can get every time we play a MEGAMIND minigame.
Okay.
We also have other segments that we're going to be debuting later this week and next week where me and Brooke are also going to be playing for up to 4 points so that each week one of us will have the most points. It'll tie. One of us will be the loser. We're going to have a lot of fun with this as we go. But this is the first example of how Randy will be getting his points every week, which is a MEGAMIND minigame. And today we have the first of our MEGAMIND minigame, which I'm calling Eagle Eye. And this is the MEGAMIND minigame, and it's pretty simple. So we have 2 lists, and the 2 lists are, we have a run of 5 Super Bowls right there on the left, and then we have Mizzou's last 5 NCAA tournament games.
Okay.
On these lists, each list, there are 2 mistakes that I need Randy Karraker to point out. And the mistake can be anywhere across the table. It could be I screwed up the Super Bowl numbering system. I messed with the winner. I messed with the loser. I could even mess with the score. Same thing with the NCAA tournament games. I could mess with the year. I could mess with the winner or the loser. I could even mess with what round the game was played in. So all of the information on the table is available to be messed with. So, Randy, I figured we'd start with the 5 Super Bowl list.
Okay.
2 mistakes. Can you point them out?
First one is Super Bowl 21 in 1986. That was the 1986 season. The Super Bowl actually played in 1987.
Correct.
It was the Giants over the Denver Broncos, not the Miami Dolphins.
Correct, Randy Karraker. You have one of the 2 on the first table.
Okay.
We need like a ding, ding, ding,
Yeah,
or like
we'll be adding effects as
I
we
can
go.
improvise.
You can ding,
Bowl,
ding, ding for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Super Bowl 22, Washington did beat Denver 42-10. That was the Doug Williams game, 1987 season. Super Bowl 23, Niners over the Bengals 20-16. Sounds right. That was the drive by Joe Montana to John Taylor catching the touchdown pass at the end. Super Bowl 24, Niners 55-10 over the Broncos, and that was 89. I think that was in New Orleans. And then
the location.
1990. That was the Giants over the Bills.
Ding, ding, ding. Randy Karraker, you got both correct. Those are both the mistakes on the first table. The second table is a little bit trickier, but I thought after the win last night, I had to put a Mizzou thing out there. So these are the last 5 NCAA tournament games. There are 2 mistakes. I will alleviate some of your guessing. I didn't mess with the years at all. Those are all accurate.
Okay,
but
good.
there are 2 things wrong within the winner, loser, and round sections of that table.
Okay, so 2023 looks right to me. Mizzou beat Utah State in the first round of 64, and then they lost to Princeton in the second round, in the round of 32. So those 2 look good to me. 2021, Tejas and Mizzou in the round of 64. I'm going to say that that's a problem. I don't recall that game, Texas and Mizzou. So I'm going to say we've got a problem with that 2021 Mizzou game.
You are correct. That is not. They did not play Texas in that game. They played a former Big 12 foe, but it was not Texas.
Okay.
And I'm not going to make you this one. I'll give you the point on pointing out that it's incorrect because this one's a little bit more nebulous. So you got your third point.
Okay.
Can you go 4 for 4 in the first edition of MEGAMIND minigames?
I believe in you.
2013, Colorado State in the round of 32. 2018, Florida State over Mizzou. That 2018 though, were they an NCAA team in 2018? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that we have a problem with 2018. I don't think they were good enough in 2018 to be a tournament team. So I'm going to say I'm going to go with 2018.
All right, Randy. Unfortunately, you're going to get 3 out of 4 today. That is not the correct other mistake. The other mistake that was on the board is actually 2013 Colorado State Mizzou. that Mizzou lost. They did not win a game in that tournament. That was a round of
Oh.
64 game, not a round of 32 game.
Okay, yeah.
Here were our two mistakes there. The Denver Broncos were the loser of Super Bowl 21. The New York Giants, the winner of Super Bowl 25. On the other hand, Oklahoma beat Mizzou in the tournament in 2021, and it was a round of 64 game for Colorado State's win over Mizzou, not a second round game. But Randy Karraker, in the first edition of Megamind Minigames, walk out of here with 3 out of 4 points. Nicely done.
I'll take 3. I'll take 3 of 4.
Woo!
75% on a test for me, man. That's like an A.
That's, I mean, yeah.
For me.
Yeah, it's pretty much is an A.
Yeah. So kind of was in my career.
I think it worked out well for you, Randy.
Yeah.
I think it did.
Do
It's so impressive when you can do that. And you also play Immaculate Grid a lot. So I think that's what
I
kind
do.
of helps you
Yeah,
in
that
these
does, yeah.
situations.
I
Is that
play
you're always
Immaculate
on
Grid
top of
every
it.
morning. Although I have not played today yet.
Oh, what happened? Just busy.
The thing is, I'm working, and it doesn't happen
makes
until
sense.
5. Yeah.
That makes it's a fair argument.
Yeah.
Like I said, that was one of the Megamind mini games. I call that one Eagle Eye. I have another one I'm working on, which is I'm going to take famous sequences from St. Louis sports. Let's say the 9th inning of the 2011 World Series,
Game 6.
Game 6, and I'm going to put it up on the screen where you will then see the sequence of events, the batter, the pitcher, what happened.
Yeah.
Just like that one, something's going to be incorrect about that sequence, and you're going to have to pull out the sequence. If and if the listeners have any other ideas for Megamind mini games that we can kind of rotate in and out, let us know. We're planning on debuting Brooke's way that she gets points tomorrow, which I'm very excited for. And then also on Friday at the end of the show, we will debut how I will be getting points, which I think you two will have a lot of fun with.
Okay, I like this.
Nice. Yes.
So tomorrow's a big day for games.
It is a big day for games.
Tomorrow's a huge day. We got a lot of games going. We got a lot of interviews because we got a lot of post-game shows. It's a big day on Sports Hub's first Friday.
Okay. By the way, the 1987 season, which was a strike season in the NFL, that's when I became a Washington Redskins fan. And I had hated the Redskins as a kid because George Allen was the worst. I abhorred George Allen. John Coryell, the Cardinals coach, accused George Allen of spying on the Cardinals. And I believed him. I'm sure he did. And the other thing that happened with the Redskins was that there was a 1975 Cardinals Redskins game, and Mel Gray just makes a clear touchdown catch to send the game into overtime. The Cardinals wind up winning. George Allen didn't agree that it was a clear catch. He didn't have the same eagle eye that I did, thus the game. And he actually went home to Washington and he wanted a congressional investigation into whether or not it was a catch. So I hated him. Wound up liking him, but I hated him then. So anyway, all these years I hate Washington. And then Joe Gibbs, former Cardinal running backs coach, becomes their head coach, and he brings a bunch of former Cardinal assistants with him, Emmett Thomas and Wayne Sevier and some other guys. I get to this Super Bowl in San Diego, and Doug Williams throws all these touchdown passes in the second quarter, and their fans keep singing, "Hail to the Redskins, hail victory." They had so much fun that I had no choice but to become a Washington fan. And so that was the day, that Super Bowl, 22, when I became a Washington fan. That's why.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, because of the song.
Because of the song.
Bill Parcells always said, he said, you go to RFK and you hear that song a lot, you know you're having a bad day.
That's good.
And now they sing "Hail to the Commanders." It's just not the same.
No, it doesn't have the same ring to it, does it?
No, not really.
Oh, all right. Well, that was Megamind Mini Games. We do have to tell you guys about our newsletter where you can get involved with.
Oh, yeah. And you can sign up. Make sure that you've done it. All you need to do is use your computer and sign up for the Sports Hub STL newsletter. And it's going to start going out next week, and you'll get all the latest content from the Hub sent to your inbox twice a week, plus anytime sports news breaks. You'll be the first to know about Sports Hub STL events and new merchandise as well. And while you're on the site, take a look around at all the cool St. Louis sports content, including recaps of daily programming like this very show, sports news, opinions, and more. Plus, if you like a little action on the games, Eric Sontag will have pregame betting analysis for every team we cover here on Sports Hub STL. Eric also will host, as my computer goes to sleep, he'll have pregame betting advice for every team we cover, and he'll host Domesticated Gamblers starting tomorrow And it'll air live here on our YouTube page every Friday at noon. And of course, all of our programming is available on demand as soon as we're finished with the live show. It's all on the website at sportshubstl.com. Sign up for the newsletter today.
And it's time for today's overarching item to close out the show. So just anything that you might have questions about, anything that piqued your interest during the story or show today, any story, whether it was Brant Brown or John Mozeliak and his legacy, Four Nations, any of that stuff. Also, any betting things that you guys are looking at too. As I mentioned earlier, that right now, if you're kind of on the fence about Team USA or Team Canada to bet on tonight, the designated home team is 0-6 in the tournament. Team USA is considered obviously the home team. But as we mentioned earlier, there's a lot to watch for because you don't have McAvoy. That's a huge loss for Team USA. Team Canada is getting Cale Makar back. My prediction is it'll be 2-1, though, still Team USA coming on top. I can see it being like tied 1-1. And what if we should say, like, I don't know, one of the Kachuk brothers scores the 2-1 winner?
I think that's fabulous.
Do you like
Let's make that
Matthew.
Bet. Yeah.
I want it to be Matthew.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
I don't know.
Let's make that bet.
Yeah. I like that one. Anything else that's sticking out to you guys? I do want to mention, by the way, because this came out at the beginning of the show, not local news, but more international with NBA. Bobby Portis Jr. is suspended. He's been suspended for, let's see, what is it?
25 games?
Yeah, 25 games. So he took a painkiller unintentionally, is what his agent is saying. That happens a lot, doesn't it? What is like your favorite? What is your favorite? Like, I didn't know kind of suspension. Mine would be Taylor Wan, because specifically as a Titans fan, I think back to when that whole situation happened. Because if you remember, Taylor Wan signed that giant contract. He even showed up to his press conference afterwards in this like suit, smoking a cigar. And not long after that, it came out that he would be suspended because he took a substance. He said that it was supposedly in like a pre-workout or something like that, and he didn't know. If you're getting paid millions of dollars, how do you not have like a fall guy of some sort to kind of help you in these situations?
You got to get yourself a fall guy.
You do.
Yeah.
You just pretend like, oh, that wasn't for me. It's just like somebody else mixed up. My friend over here who will be willing to speak to you.
Okay, there's so many great examples of this. My favorite all time, though, is Rafael Palmeiro, who said to a congressional subcommittee talking about steroids in baseball, "I do not take steroids," and he wagged his finger at him. Then he tests positive, and says that he never took steroids, that Miguel Tejada was plunging a B12 shot into his butt, and he thought it was B12.
Oh,
yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, he's wasn't my fault. I thought it was B12. That's what he was telling me.
That's what he said. Tatis Jr. and what was it that he said that he had? Ringworm.
Yeah, right. That's a great one.
That's a great one.
Yeah. There was it was Alex Rodriguez. We took this supplement called Boli. Well, Boli is a steroid. You were I think he was in the Dominican. We took Boli, and so yeah, when you take Boli and you buy it in the Dominican, you're rolling the dice.
Yeah.
So come on, A-Rod.
That's what don't they have, like, I think at least in the NFL and Major League Baseball, you can send off, if you're curious about it as a player, you can send it off to a lab to make sure that you can take it, correct?
Right.
That seems like that would be the easy. If you're making millions of dollars, why would you not do that? Ooh, I remember one because we talked about this at the beginning of the show. And usually I do not like to put out any Peyton Manning blasphemy out there. But if everybody remembers, when he was still with the Broncos, he was dealing with all that neck pain and how he was so stiff in his neck. And remember, he supposedly got some roids delivered to his house, but it was for his wife.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
You remember that?
It was for his wife.
So it was never, I don't think anything ever came from that.
No, it didn't. It was
no, because the NFL was like, oh, look over here. It's Peyton Manning. No, let's not look at that.
Yeah. Hey, how about the Chilean gang that got arrested for robbing the homes of professional athletes? Mahomes, Kelsey, Joe Burrow. Yeah. Bobby Portis was one of those guys in Milwaukee.
It's been a bad year for Portis.
Yeah, a couple of days, but at least maybe they got his stuff. Like O.J. Simpson, I came to get my stuff.
R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P.
R.I.P.
But these guys were really sharp. The thing they screwed up was the selfies. Okay.
Yeah.
But they would hide in the woods and monitor the patterns of the security guards of the athletes. Then they would break into the homes by breaking small windows or prying open sliding doors before converting jewel-encrusted watches and designer bags and gold chains and rings into cash using loot launderers far from their victims. It was all fine until they sent selfies to their buddies saying, hey, look where we are and look what we got. We got Patrick Mahomes watches or whatever it was. And the FBI, and I'll tell you what, the FBI is good. I know there's people out there that say the FBI isn't. FBI is good. They go and they find these pictures on a cloud and they bring them down, and they arrested 7 guys yesterday.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because I was wondering, I was like, how are they getting? I would assume if you're Patrick Mahomes, if you're Joe Burrow, if you're one of these big athletes, you have to spend money on round the clock security.
Yeah,
so I just kind of assumed that that's what they all had. I was like, how do these guys not have any security whatsoever? And that's how they got around them.
They really monitored the security people and the security systems, and they knew all the workarounds for the security systems at these athletes' homes.
That's crazy. Well, and then are these the same guys who got pulled over with Joe Burrow? Okay,
yeah.
So then I don't know if you saw that video of the guys who got pulled over in that arrest, but they were literally wearing like Bengals gear. Yeah. And so the stuff that you were talking about, the selfies they took, they also had a bunch of Joe Burrow stuff on and in the back seat of their car.
Same thing happened with the Chiefs. One of them was wearing a Chiefs jersey too. So the guys have been caught. So the moral of the story is you can be a really good robber, but even the best make a mistake. You can't be in this day and age.
No, Randy,
with this high tech.
The ones who get caught, the criminals who get caught are the dumb criminals.
These guys
good criminals don't get caught.
Well, yeah, you're right. The mistake they made was the selfies, right? The actual act of stealing the stuff was brilliant, but they got caught because of the selfies. So here's the thing, guys, just use your old Canon camera, right? And get the pictures developed at Walgreens.
Still evidence. But then if you get it developed at Walgreens, there's a nosy person that would probably
the guy working the guy working in the dark room at Kinko's isn't a priest. It's not like he's locked in that he can't tell the police what he just developed.
He's not going to know. He's not going to know what he's looking at.
Unless he's a giant Joe Burrow fan and he sees an iced out 9 pendant.
Yeah.
Or
that's
6
pretty telling.
But 9. Nobody's going to look that close. Nobody who's developing pictures is going to look that close at them and say, "Oh, these."
Does anyone develop pictures anymore?
Is that a thing print them off. They print them off.
Yeah. So you can go in and here you got a little disc from your old Canon digital camera. Just put it in the little machine at
Polaroid
Walgreens.
Camera. That's what
Well, there's the play.
That's the play. Yeah. That's the play.
So we got ideas. We not that we have the wherewithal and the intelligence to be good thieves or the desire, as a matter of fact. But if you want to help, in not getting caught, come to Brooke, Matthew, and Randy's consulting service, and we will help you not get caught. Waterboy checks in. Thoughts on Dennis Gates telling the fans to not storm the court last night? That was awesome.
I really like that because he kind of explained it from an NIL perspective.
Amazing
he said,
answer.
and I love that because of course the fans are going to be like, well, no, I don't want to take away NIL money. We want to make sure that we can get it to these guys. That was brilliant on his part. I also heard that Harpo's even sent out a message saying if you don't storm the court, then you get, I don't know.
Free drinks?
No,
I've never been to Harpo, so I don't know.
Mizzou students reportedly woke up today with a text through the school system. Mizzou win plus no court storm equals free cover at my house and Harpo's. Wear your retro hat for entry. Harpo's Wednesday and Thursday. My house Saturday from 5 to 8 p.m. And apparently that was a student-wide text message sent from the university, which tells me this is an SEC school, baby.
My buddy Danny Dolan used to own car washes here, Westport Car Wash, and now he owns that Harpo's in Columbia. So
somebody
good job,
tell
Danny.
me about Harpo's. Were you a Harpo's regular, Rockio, back in your college days?
No, me and my friends were more Big 12, which I don't know what it's called anymore. What the hell is it called right now? I don't even know what it's called anymore. But
The
it was
Big 12
called.
still.
Is it still Big 12? Yeah, we were big Big 12
So
people.
now Arizona's in it.
And then Shots Bar, Shiloh, which I think is gone now.
So it's just like a nightclub then, right?
Harpo's?
Yeah.
It's a bar.
It's a bar.
It's a bar.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a cover. Like how much is the curve?
They have
a
Five
cover?
Below. They have Five Below in the basement of
I love Five
Harpo's,
Below.
which is a nightclub and a fantastic time.
And and they've
Great
got
place for recruits.
great televisions as well. So 2 great instances of coaches grabbing the microphone. One was a Mizzou game on the day that Norm Stewart got sick with cancer. Oklahoma was number 1, and Mizzou's flying down to Norman, and Norm gets sick on the plane, and Mizzou goes down, and they're leading Oklahoma, and the Oklahoma fans get mad because of the officiating, and they're booing and they're throwing things on the floor.
Yeah.
And Ed Hightower was actually the referee of the game, St. Louis guy, former superintendent of the Edwardsville School District, great guy, one of my all-time favorite people. And Ed Hightower tells Billy Tubbs, the head coach of Oklahoma, hey, grab the microphone and tell your fans to stop throwing stuff on the floor. Billy Tubbs goes over to the scorer's table, grabs the microphone, says, no matter how bad the officiating is, don't throw stuff on the floor. And Kevin Harlan was doing radio. Kevin Harlan was doing radio for Mizzou at the time. And he said, did you hear what he just said? Did you hear what he just said?
So
it was
good.
one of the all-time great
I
calls.
can hear Kevin Harlan saying that right now. Yeah.
Another time, the Cincinnati Bengals were at home, and their head coach was Sam Weish, who was very funny and very vocal. And the Bengals fans were throwing things on the field in Cincinnati, and Sam Weish gets a microphone down on the field and says, don't throw things on the field. You're not in Cleveland. And they were playing the Browns that day. It was great.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But good on Dennis Gates. I like the NIL. The fans understood that they don't want to take away NIL money.
They get it. This has been a fun show. This has been great. We got a lot of things covered today. We thank you. We want you every single day to join us on the YouTube chat, participate in the show, and have fun like we do.
Yeah, and you can go back and watch too. And coming up a little bit later is it still 1 p.m. today? Correct.
1 p.m. for a
Cards Hub STL. Or I was combining both of them. I'm sorry. Now Dave's going to get mad at me. Dave, please don't get mad at me.
Cards Hub 365, powered by Gray Bar, coming up at 1.
Yeah.
We're getting the rap signal from Matthew Rocchio, who does
you can
such
see
a
us tomorrow. Yeah.
So is the camera battery running out? We've got 4 minutes left, so we're going to go 4%. Oh, we got time.
Oh,
we're
we
good.
Don't. No,
we're good. So it's been the Randy Karraker podcast featuring Brooke Grimsley with Matthew Rocchio. We thank you for being a part of it, and we'll be right back at it tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Central Time. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you then on Sports Hub STL.